And
This
wonderful.
meeting is being recorded.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another Michael's Community Classroom. My name is Allie W. I'm from Yarn Inspirations, and we are here with Tamara today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, so you can't see her fabulous face, but she is here. You can see her hands. So we have a great pattern today for you with using Caron Cotton Cakes. I know a major fan favorite amongst our stitchers. And it's a really great all-purpose summer tote bag. So just as a reminder, if you have any class questions throughout today's class, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get to just as many as we can. All right, I think we're ready to kick things off.
Okay, hi everybody, and thank you so much for your patience today. I've got some tree trimmers down the street and our internet dropped out at about 11:59 here. So we got it up and running on 5G. Let's keep our fingers crossed. This is that beautiful tote bag that Allie was talking about, the Caron Granny Summer Bag. And as you can see here, I'm having trouble getting it all on camera. It is a nice, really generously sized tote with some really simple handles that just top it all off. And if you look at it, you can see it's just made of simple squares that are then connected and folded a special way, and it turns into this really great bag. The really lovely thing, let me hold this up real close for you. If you haven't looked at the pattern yet, these are pretty much all single crochets. That is really about the only stitch you need to know to make this tote. So it's absolutely wonderful for beginners as well as experienced crocheters. As she mentioned, we're using cotton cakes here, Caron Cotton Cakes. I have a couple different colorways today than what the pattern calls for, but you can, of course, use whatever color you like best. I like this one a lot. This is one I've been practicing with. This one is called, let me find the name for you here, Boho Floral. So that one is just a really pretty color. You can already see I worked up a little mini square in it right here. So you're going to get some color changes. And of course, the bigger the square, the more color changes will get in there. Now, in addition to our yarn, of course, we need a hook, and this pattern calls for USH 5mm crochet hook. And I think it's also really helpful if you have stitch markers for this pattern. And if you, of course, you will need your standard crochet supplies, scissors, and a sewing needle and all that stuff. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the pattern yet, let me pull that up a little closer to the screen here. We've got 2 pages on this pattern. And you can see here on the instructions that we make 13 motifs. What that means is we're actually making 13 of those squares that are then connected in this really unique way. So today I want to go over the square pattern itself, so we can do that. I'm going to demo a couple different ways to join it, and then hopefully we can go over to how to assemble the bag together, because I think that gives people just a little bit of trouble. The handles, however, don't worry about those. The straps, those are just 4 rows of single crochet that are then literally just sewed right onto those corners. So those themselves are really quite simple. So let me go ahead and move some of these things out of the way here. I'm going to need to bring that pattern back up here so I can follow along with all of you. Caron Cakes, of course, being a caked yarn, is great for pulling from the center or pulling from the outside. And if you really want to mix up the layout of your squares, you could make one square from the inside and another square from the outside and go back and forth. And you'll get some really neat color changes using that technique as well. So to begin making our motifs, all 13 of these motifs are exactly the same. And they all start with a chain 2. So let me move some things out of the way here so the camera wants to focus on my hands instead of all our background stuff here. And we're going to start with a slip stitch on our hook. Or excuse me, a slip knot. There we are, a slip knot on our hook right there. Then we simply chain 2. 1 and 2. There we are. Then we're going to work 4 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. This is a little bit different way to start a square. So we want to go into that chain furthest from the hook, the very first one we made. Now, a lot of times people might have you flip over to work under the top of the chain. Working 4 stitches into this chain, we're basically going to work all the way around it. So you can just go ahead and fold it right over and go into that back hump. Makes it a little easier, I think, to get started there. So there's 1. And I'm going to go ahead and put a stitch marker in this stitch. When we're working with tiny little stitches like this, sometimes it's hard to tell what's a stitch and what's a slip stitch. This way we know this was the first stitch of our round. Let me insert my hook here. I've got 3 more single crochets to work all into that same chain. So we go right back in that chain for our second single crochet. And then as we keep putting them in, you can see we're running out of room. So we're basically gonna wrap around that whole chain there, because we want to start working in the round. So there's 3, and then there's 4 right there. So then what I'd like to do is go ahead and put another slip stitch in here, or excuse me, a stitched marker. Oh, having trouble with my words today. Put a stitch marker in that 4th stitch. And now I'll be able to tell which is my first and last stitch of the round. To finish this round, we simply join with a slip stitch to the very first single crochet made. So that's nice and easy to see there. There we are. So that is what it should look like at the end of round 1. Quite small, right? If you want to, I noticed on the finished tote, they did use that first end to sort of tighten that up and close that hole in the middle. So you can leave it a little open, or you can use your tail end when you weave it in to cinch that up a little bit if you like. Now, we're not going to be working back into those slip stitches. You can see how it really wants to look like a stitch there. So it's fine to go ahead and pull that really nice and tight. After that, we are ready for round 2. Were there any questions on round 1 that I might have missed?
To make a smaller tote,
Hmm.
would making smaller squares be the best way to do that?
Absolutely. I think that would be a fantastic solution. The squares in the finished pattern are, I believe it mentions here, yes, 7 inches square. So, you can kind of do some math on it if you want to, or if you just know you want kind of a half-size tote, just make half as many rounds. You could absolutely, just change the size of the squares. You could go teeny tiny all the way up to even bigger if you want to make bigger squares. All righty, so let's go ahead and start on round 2 here. Get ourselves in focus again. Round 2 starts with the chain 1. And then we are going to work 4 single crochets in each of those single crochets around. So this is really going to pack those stitches in. Again, this is going to be a great time to use those stitch markers. Go ahead and pull that one just out of the way while we put in this first one here. And then I'm going to go ahead and move that stitch marker up to that stitch. You might notice when I take my hook out of my loop, I tend to just sort of drop it right over my finger like that. I really like doing that just as a habit, because that way my loop doesn't get twisted at all. Sometimes when you pull your hook out, that loop can get twisted around and it can make your stitches look a little funky. You can't quite figure out why. It's because that loop got twisted when you put your hook back in it. So if you just drop it over your finger like that, that can be a really handy way to keep it safe. So we've got 1 stitch in the first stitch. We need 3 more, all in that first stitch. So 2 and 3 and 4. Sorry, I'm trying to hold my fingers out of the way there, but you know how tiny those stitches are. There we go. 4 stitches in the first stitch. We come over here. Now, when you put that many stitches in 1 stitch, it might kind of really try and push over and cover up the stitch next to it. So it's just yarn, and it's pretty solid yarn at that. This Caron Cotton Cakes is a really nice blend. So you can really kind of yank those stitches over to find that next stitch that you need to work into if you need to. So now we got to put 4 stitches in this one. So there's 1 and 2 and 3, and get that stitch marker out of the way there, 4. We should have 2 stitches left. Yep, we've got a stitch marker there, so we know that's our next one right there. Not too covered up. We want to get in there with 4 more stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we are. And now we just have that one last stitch. We know we're in the right spot. We've got our stitch marker right there. So 1, 2. I think at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pull that stitch marker on up out of the way, because it's just going to be in the way as we try and add these last 2 stitches to that stitch. There we are. And 3 and 4. All righty, so now we did our last stitch for round 2, so I still want to put my stitch marker right in there. So we went from 4 stitches in round 1 to 16 stitches in round 2. So like I say, we've really packed those in there. Now you can see how you can use that tail end to sort of cinch that center up if you want to. But like all our rounds for this pattern, we finish with a slip stitch in that very first stitch. There we go. And that tiny little square is what it looks like after round 2. If you really wanted a tiny little tote bag, like something, doll size or something, you could absolutely stop all your squares here and then move on to the joining and assembly. But we're going to keep going for a few more rounds here. Round 3 is where we really start kind of working, kind of establishing the pattern that we're mostly going to follow through the rest of these squares. So we start again with a chain 1. There we are. And then we're going to single crochet in the same space as the last stitch. So right back in that same space right there. So this is actually kind of tricky here. Go ahead and just single crochet in that first stitch there. Then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then skip the next single crochet and single crochet in each of the next 3. So let's go ahead and take that stitch marker out of the way and put it in that first single crochet we made. So we chained 1, we single crocheted. Now we start with the asterisk. We chain 3, then we skip the next single crochet and single crochet in the 3 stitches after that. So we want to skip the next one and single crochet in the next 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Then we repeat that a few more times here as we work around our square. I just need to pull up a little bit more yarn here from my skein, or my cake, I should say. There we go. Now we chain 3 again. 1, 2, 3. Skip the next stitch and single crochet in the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. So you can see our square really starting to shape up. You can see how those chain 3s are going to make our corners. So we've got 2 more corners to make. Chain 3, skip the next stitch, and single crochet in the 3 after that. There we are. Sometimes the way I tend to hold my yarn, it really likes to sort of build up in my left hand. Physics is funny that way. There we are. So we've got 3 corners made. We've got 1 more. Chain 3. But now, when we skip that next stitch, there's just 2 stitches left. Remember, we had the one in the beginning. So between these last 2 and that first one, we'll have our side of 3 again. So we skip the next stitch, go into the next stitch there. The next one is actually marked as the final stitch. There we are. And that is where we put our last stitch. So you can see now, we started with the 1 and finished with the 2. So they become their own side of 3. And we have our 4 chain 3 corners. We need to join again with a slip stitch. And at this point, it's not as necessary, I don't think, to use the stitch markers. You can if you want to, but I think it's a little bit easier to see from here on out. If you're a new crocheter, I do recommend that you keep using them though. We can go ahead and pull that slip stitch really tight. You don't need to work into it at all. We don't want to work into it all. So we can just tighten those stitches up really well. And there is what it looks like at the end of round 3. So were there any questions I could answer on rounds 1, 2, or 3 so far?
No questions right now.
Okay, great. Well, let's continue with round 4. And round 4 is the row officially, or round, that we repeat all the way through. This calls for 16 rounds total in this square, but as we've talked about, you can stop wherever you want. However, you'll want to make sure to stop at the same round for all your squares if you do decide to stop somewhere else. So round 4, let's read through it together. It says chain 1, and my hook all twisted, there we are, chain 1. And then we are going to work 1 single crochet in each single crochet to the next corner chain 3 space. So this is written out so we can keep following it for all those rounds. So that means we're going to work 1 single crochet in each single crochet till we get to the corner space. Well, it's only round 3, so we're there already. We're at our chain 3 corner. In that corner chain 3 space, we're going to work a single crochet, chain 3, single crochet. So we go right into that space. You don't have to try and work into any of those individual chains. Got a single crochet. Let me put a little bit more yarn here. Oop, there we are. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then single crochet right back into that same chain 3 space. There we go. Then we single crochet in each stitch till we get to the next chain 3 space. So you can see, hopefully, how easy it is to keep building those rows. We just, every time we work into that corner chain 3 space, we're going to be adding a single crochet, chain 3, single crochet, which will widen that row that we work into in the next round. We've come to our next chain 3 space. So we go right in there, single crochet, chain 3, and single crochet right in that space. Then single crochet in each stitch till we get to the next chain 3 space. I did see a question pop up, but I wasn't able to read it. So while we continue working around here for this round, Allie, can you help me out?
Yep, they actually have not left the question. They just said they have a question. So feel free to drop your question in the chat and we will help you out.
All righty. I saw that part. I thought I just must have missed the other part. All righty. So we're back in that corner chain 3 space. So we've got our single crochet, chain 3, single crochet, and then we continue on across. Single crochet in each stitch until we get to that last corner there. I think, yep, we're coming up on our last corner. So there's that next chain 3, single crochet, pull up some more yarn as needed, chain 3, and single crochet right back into that space. Now, for the final side, we're just going to single crochet in each stitch until we get to the end. So we only had those few stitches here, so we're already there. And now we can see that's our first stitch. So if this, if you have trouble reading your stitches, like I say, you might still want to put a stitch marker in the first and last stitch of each round. Otherwise, we just join with a slip stitch. Definitely want to, snug that up nice and tight. And that is what your square should look like at the end of round 4. So let's go ahead and make another couple of quick rounds together here so that we have a couple of the same sized squares, because I already made one with 6 rounds and we're going to need one of the same size so I can demo how to join them. So again, for round 5, single crochet in each stitch until you get to that chain 3. In our chain 3, we single crochet, chain 3 again, and single crochet. So if you have any questions on the making of the square itself, now would be the time to ask while we're working on the actual square. So please do drop those in the comments. But look at that beautiful color change we're already getting with this yarn. So pretty.
So they are looking for some questions around, is it single crochets that make the corners?
The corners are a single crochet, a chain 3, and a single crochet. So those chain 3s are kind of the corners. You can see how they line up there. Every time we come to a chain 3, we work a single crochet, a chain 3, and then another single crochet. Oh, really running through our yarn on this one. A little bit more here, so I've got a little bit more play on my hook here. There we are. So now that single crochet, chain 3, single crochet we made, this will be the corner chain 3 when we come around for the next round. Count the number of stitches. Well, we are working on, let's see, I'm trying to remember what round we're on. We're on round 5. So for round 5, we would single crochet, chain 3, single crochet in the corner, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches to work in, and then single crochet, chain 3, single crochet in that chain 3 corner again. So now we're on this side. We've made our corner. So now we've got stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we are. That brings us back to a chain 3 corner. So we single crochet, chain 3 to make a new corner. 1, 2, 3, and single crochet back in that chain 3 space. That brings us to our new side. So we single crochet in each stitch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That brings us to a chain 3 corner right here. So we go right into that chain 3 space, single crochet, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and single crochet right back in that chain 3 space. So now we've got a new corner made. Then we just single crochet in each stitch. We're on our 4th side. So we've only got a few more here. A little bit of a yarn snag here. Let me get that straightened out, or we're run out of yarn. So I hope if that was a question, if that clarified things, please let me know. If I didn't answer your question or if I misunderstood, please do let me know. Were there any other questions? Unfortunately, I'm going to have to take care of this yarn.
Carol wants to know if she can start with a magic circle instead.
Absolutely, you can, Carol. You can start with a magic circle, an adjustable ring, any really, any adjustable start, any of those would be absolutely fine for this pattern. There we go. Got it all straightened out. As you can see, that little chain 2, it does make a very small opening. And on the finished bag, they've really cinched that up as well. So a magic circle would be a really wonderful start if that's what you wanted to use for this pattern. All righty, we've got our little snag out of our yarns. We've got just a couple more stitches here on this round. This is again round 5. So now we are back at that first stitch. So we slip stitch to that one. And let's do one more relatively quick round here. Oop, there we go. So that's what it should look like after round 5. And of course, depending on the yarn you're using, your colors will be different. Even if you're using the same yarn, your colors are going to be a little different. Nature of the project. We're going to chain 1, go right back in that same stitch. Then single crochet in each stitch until we get to a chain 3. So as we begin round 6 here, we'll have just 3 stitches before we get to that first corner. We single crochet and chain 3 again here. 1, 2, 3. There we are. Single crochet right back in that space. Single crochet across in each stitch. Now it's round 6. So I believe we will have, since we had 5 last time and we added 1 on each side in those chain 3 corners, we should have 7. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that brings us to that chain 3. We go right in there with a single crochet, another chain 3, and another single crochet. So when you're making your motifs, when you're making your full-size motifs or whatever size you want to make, all the rounds of the squares are exactly the same. From here on out, I should say. We just keep growing our square by working into those chain 3 corner spaces and making new corners. So you could stop at any point to make custom sized squares. You just want to make sure all your squares are exactly the same size. So on that note, I wouldn't worry too much about gauge for this pattern either, in terms of like matching the designer's gauge. It is a bag, it's not a garment, so it doesn't need to quote unquote fit, and if your squares, turn out a little bit smaller than their squares, you can just add another round or make a slightly smaller bag, totally up to you. And then of course, vice versa. So now we're at that corner again. I'm gonna go in there with a single crochet, chain 3, and single crochet right back in that corner. Almost went 1 row down. Got to pull that open there. But you can see how those chain 3s now are lining up and creating the corners of our motif. Here we are. So just want to finish up this one. Were there any other questions I could answer here?
I don't have any other questions right now.
Okay, excellent. I really do enjoy seeing the colors come together in this yarn. What's funny is this was the beginning of that skein. Wasn't that interesting? This was the section right after it. Same skein of yarn. These Caron Cotton Cakes really are a joy to use. And of course, it's 60%, I believe, is it 60% acrylic, 40% cotton? And that is a beautifully washable yarn as well. So this is a great tote to use in real life for sure. It is a 4-weight yarn, worsted or medium weight. There we are. I could, oh, go ahead, Allie.
I was just going to say, and it is 60 cotton, 40 acrylic.
I was worried I had those switched. I always mix those two up. There we are. So we've got our 6th side there. We can join with a slip stitch and just keep on going through round 16 for the full size squares. But for the sake of time, I'm going to stop here today. And actually, I'm not going to finish this very last round with a slip stitch. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to pull out my scissors. There we are. And I'm going to cut, my 6-inch tail or so, whatever I want to use for weaving in my ends. But then rather than joining with a slip stitch, I'm just going to go ahead and pull up on my hook. Then I'm going to get out my yarn needle we have right there and put the yarn on my yarn needle. And then let me get turned right around here. We want to stay on the right side. What I'm going to do is what I like to call a seamless join or seamless finish. It probably has lots of different names. I don't know that it has an official one, but right there you can see that's our first stitch of the round. This is our 2nd stitch. I want to maintain my stitch count on this side. I want to have the same number of stitches on this side that I have on this side, but I don't want to have the little lump of a slip stitch here. So instead, I'm going to take my sewing needle or my yarn needle. I'm going to go to that 2nd stitch and I'll go right under those top 2 loops, just as I would if it was a crochet hook. I'm going to gently pull that through. I'm not going to pull this tight. I'm just going to pull that loop till it's about the size of a crochet stitch. And get my hands to hold still there. There we go. Then I'm going to take my needle and go right back in that same stitch. So you see that's where the yarn came out of. I go right back in there with my needle and pull that down from the top there. You can see that looks just like another stitch. There's no weird lump. There's not a funny join. There's not a knot. We've basically, you can see the real stitch is right underneath, but we've sort of created a new little false top for it. So after that, I do like to send my yarn needle sort of through that stitch we skipped over, that first one, just to sort of help tack it all together. Oops. There we go. And then too, if it's pulled up a little bit, you can adjust it, give it a little snug, a little tug. And now it really is sort of seamless or invisible. And then of course you can just weave in your ends on the back as you normally do. I'm just gonna tack this one down real quick so we can move on with our demo here. There we go. And there we have it. There is our miniature version of the motif for this bag. So now we need to talk about joining them together. And we're going to go over the final layout assembly, but first let's talk about how to actually start joining these squares together. Now the instructions in the pattern say to join with single crochet through the back loop. The finished bag features the whip stitch through the back loop. So that means we've got 2 great options here. This is going to be, though, another great place to pull out those stitch markers. These are the ones by Susan Bates. These are pretty great. These are my favorite style, the sort of safety pin looking ones. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got our right sides facing up. We don't want to have our back sides. If you want to leave your tails on till the end, that's a great way to sort of visually clue yourself in so you don't make any mistakes there. But then I'm going to start attaching them to each other. So I'm just going to put wrong sides together here. And then I'll take my stitch markers and go through the corner of one and the corner of the other. To make this particular size square, this was 6 rounds. There we are. So now I'm going to go through the other corner there. There we go. So now you can see those are attached. Now with these little squares, I don't feel as compelled to try and match up all these stitches, but on the full size, if you go 16 rounds or even larger, you may want to count out every few stitches and use your stitch markers to sort of hold those together as well to help keep you sort of together here. This square right now is about, I'd guesstimate 2¼ inches square. Eyeballing it. I don't have one thing I don't have on me right now is a tape measure. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we actually start joining them together. So let me find my yarn here. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that little tangle here. There we go. And pull up some more yarn. And if we're going to single crochet them together, we would leave our yarn attached to the skein or the cake. And then it instructs us to single crochet through the back loop of each square. So It depends which side you kind of want to approach this from. You have to make a choice because your stitch is going to have a little bit of direction. And let's go ahead and actually start in the corner. We're just going to stick our hook right in that corner chain 3 space of both of those squares. Get my yarn here, lay it over my hook, and pull it through. I will drop that end, yarn over, and chain 1. And now we've got our chain 1 on there, so we can begin our row of single crochet, and our corners are joined together. I'm going to go ahead and put one more single crochet in that chain 3 space right there, or one single crochet, not one more, but one, I should say. We don't really have back loops to work into there. If you wanted to work into the back loop of the chain, you could. Totally optional. It's your own bag. You can do it however you like. So now I want to make sure I get that first stitch there. And I'm going to go under the back loop of that stitch. So when we look at the top of a single crochet, or really any crochet stitch, there's usually that V or those top 2 loops, right? The front loop is the one that's closest to you, the crocheter, and the back loop is the one that's furthest away. It's always relative to you, the crocheter. That said, to get under the back loop of both of these, because we've kind of got them folded over here, we kind of have to think about it more, not so much coming this way, but coming down from the top, looking at the top of these squares. We want the back loop of that row there and the back loop of this row here. So the one that's back here. So if we've got them folded like this, it's actually going to seem like it's the back loop of one and the front loop of the other. But really, it's just the one that's going to be closest to the back of our work, the one that's closest to the wrong side of the work. So I went in under the back loop of that one. You can see if I turn this way, there's the back loop of that one. So then we simply yarn over and work a single crochet. And we go to the next stitch, we go under the back loop of that one, and sort of turn our work over here. See how that's the back loop of that stitch? It's the one place where that definition of front loop and back loop kind of breaks down. But we just want it to be the loop of that stitch that's closest to the wrong side of the work for this case. So we go in the back loop of that one. You can really flip it over if you need to. Find that back loop of the one opposite and make a single crochet. And then you would just work all the way down that side row there. So we come to that one and etc. On across. You've seen me make single crochets now. We've been making lots of them. You get the idea. Oh, this hook really wants to roll away today. Let me put that there. So let me hold that up so we can see what that looks like. So you have an idea there of what that seam looks like. Adding a seam like this is a great way to add a little extra texture. If you wanted some texture or dimension to your bag, I almost said blanket, you can see from behind, it's relatively smooth. But the one that they actually used in the bag is a little different. So I'm going to show that one to you now, because I think it actually has a little bit smoother finish. So for this one, it's basically a sewn whip stitch. So we need to cut some yarn first. My rule of thumb is usually about 2 to 3 times the length of the seam that I want to make. It's a good eyeball amount. So I will get that on my needle. Once again, now this is a sewn seam, so we're going to be using our yarn needle. And as I say, we do need to cut the yarn. We don't want to leave it attached to the skein. So for this one, you could, again, start in the corner, but I'm going to recommend that you actually find a section of yarn if you can for that square that sort of matches. And then you can actually start weaving in that end first, right at the corner. We'll just pull that. I'm not going to pull it all the way through. I'll leave some. We'll pretend I'm going to go back and weave that together later. But we've still got the same line up here. Get that little stitch marker sort of out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out of the way because I'm afraid it's going to get in the way as we're sewing. And now what you can do is come up through one corner. And then we want to go down into that same corner. When I'm starting out for this seaming, I really like to just get a really nice solid stitch there. Then I'm actually going to open this up a little bit here. I think it'll be easier to see. Turn it around this way here. What I want to do is I still want to use those back loops. So I'm going to find, there's that first stitch here. I'll go under that back loop of that stitch and the back loop of the stitch opposite. We want to give that a little bit of a tug there. There we go. And cinch that up a little bit. Then we go to, get in focus, the next stitch, go under that back loop, come up under the back loop of the stitch on the square next to it. After you've taken a couple of these, you can really give it a pull. You can see this is a little bit more subtle of a seam. But we just want to stick in those back loops there. Here we are. Take a couple more with this one. And then, of course, when you get to the end, just like with any time you're using yarn, you just can cut off the excess and weave in your ends. So if you wanted to, you could try to cut a long enough piece of yarn to do several squares at a time, or you can do just one square at a time. And of course, there's lots of other joining methods out there too, honestly, all sorts of really decorative joins and all different ways you can join squares. So you could absolutely find your own preferred join if you wanted to. When you're making the last round, some people have techniques they like to use to sort of connect them as they go. So that's a little bit more advanced than what we have in this pattern. But if you are one of those crocheters or an adventurous crocheter and you want to explore those, that would be another really fun way to sort of make this pattern your own. You can see I've gotten about to that other corner, but this is a much smoother seam you can see right there. And it really sort of highlights that front loop, gives each of those motifs its own little border, its own little edge. But basically that's it. You keep sewing them together and then of course weave in your ends when you're done. So were there any other questions about that before I move to the actual assembly? Like, well, how to arrange the squares, I should say.
I don't see any right now.
Okay, excellent. And I love that those two were really literally made one right after the other from the same skein. Isn't that fun? All right, so let's clean up our workspace here just a little bit so I can make some space. What we're talking about now is page 2. This right here, this page shows you how the squares need to be joined together to create this bag shape. And this can be a little bit confusing, so I thought we'd go ahead and try and work it out. Now, I haven't made 13 motifs that we're going to sew together. We would not have time for that, but Post-it notes and Scotch tape to the rescue. Let's go ahead and start looking at our layout. Our top one, we have one square. Oh, there we are. And then we add a square to one side of that square. Let me grab some tape here. Then we add a square to the other side there. And as you are connecting your squares, as you are making them, we've got connected 2 here. You can lay it out and compare it to the diagram on the pattern. So you can see, okay, here's the first 2. When it's time to add our third one, it needs to be right there. So you can really sort of lay it out on your table in front of you and compare it to the diagram as you go. Now this one's going to be connected on 2 sides, our 4th square to make a square, basically. There we are. And then we've got to add another one on this side, right here. And then another one. So now we've got 2 by 3. You can think of it, this direction if you need to when you're assembling them. And then let's compare. We're working on this one right here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We need 2 more right there. So we'll put 1 right there. Imagine we've sewn that on. And then 1 more right there. Okay. So like I say, take your time as you're making your squares, or if you want to make them all ahead of time and then sew them together when you're done, that's fine too. But you just want to stop, lay it out, and say, okay, I need to add another one here. Doesn't matter. You can mix them up if you want to, if you You end up with a square that looks a lot like this and you don't want them next to each other. You can put them wherever, in whatever order, but this is the layout that you want to achieve for the first piece. Now, if you look at, I grab a pen here. If you look at this diagram closely, if I can hold it up close enough here, you can see there are some labeled, some letters here labeling the size of those squares. So let's go ahead and draw those in. Let me put this hook aside here so it stops rolling around on us. We've got A would be right here. And then B, trying to make this big so it can show up on camera here. C, D, E, F, G, and H. Okay, so that's how those are identified. Now we're going to have to move this one aside a little bit. And then separately, we want to assemble this piece right here. Relatively simple, right? We've got one square in the middle and just one attached to each side. So there's one on that side. And we had another one on that side. Another one on this side, just making an X basically. And then finally, one there. Okay, so now these also have letter labels. Starts on this side for this one. So we go A, B, I'll put that aside here, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Okay, so now those are labeled as well. So now what we need to do is match up each of those letters. Looks a little crazy, but just take it one seam at a time. So we've got our piece number one up here. It's A up there. A is just one of these little, one side of the cross here. So find our A, we find our A, and we would seam those two together. Now, luckily, B and B are right there. Nice and easy. We just come around the corner. Now we need to pick it up and do a little bit of folding. C and C, we're going to need to bring together. They're not going to just lay out. After you've got A and B connected, it's going to look like this. So you'll need to pick it up and put C and C together that way. I'll get some tape here and go ahead and like we had them folded together for our seaming. We're going to go ahead and fold our paper. There we are. So now trying to, all the Post-its are working against me. That's what happened. Let me pull that back open. There we go. Now C is seamed to C. D and D are apart, so we need to bring that up here. Okay, grab another little piece of tape. So now, works a little better in yarn than it does in paper, but you can see it's starting to be kind of a funky shape, but we got to trust the process. E is right there. So if we bring E up to meet the other E, we can seam those together here with our tape. So now, still looking a little funky, but now we've got F and F. Bring those together. Tape on that one. And then we've got G and G. We want to match those up right there. And then finally, let's see, one sort of flap still hanging out there. H and H. Those are now next to each other. So when it's time, oops, hold it over my tape. When it's time to match up your squares, you're probably not going to, want to write letters on them, right? Let's go ahead and lay that out. Look at that. After we did H, it's a little funky in our Post-it note, but you can see how that really does all come together to make the shape of the bag. So as I was saying, when it's time to match up your actual squares, you're probably not going to want to, break out a Sharpie and write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. on them. So what you can do is break out those stitch markers again and use the different colors. You can take a little note to yourself off to the side, A is yellow. And when you've got your layout done, go back and decide, okay, A is going to be yellow, B is going to be blue, green's going to be, whatever. Pick out those colors, and then you can sort of match the sides with those stitch markers together, since you won't be able to draw on your crochet motifs. After you've got all that seaming done, Post-it notes are sticking to each other here. You can see we've got that bag shape. We've got those 4 corners sticking up here at the top. So then all we have left to do is add those straps. We have that right here. It is literally just 4 rows of single crochet worked back and forth, and then sewn right down onto the piece. The Art Inspirations design team taped these down. I think they might have been debating different handle styles here, but you get the idea. It's just 4 rows of single crochet sewn right onto the back of the corner there that's sticking up. So in our instructions for the handles, it instructs to chain 85, but you could make those straps, of course, whatever length you want them to be. If you preferred something handheld, absolutely make them shorter. If you want something even longer, if you want to wear it as a crossbody, you could do that too. Do remember that crochet straps do stretch a little bit. So if you want your straps to not stretch, one trick that I like to recommend is sewing a little bit of ribbon from the ribbon aisle at Michael's. Whatever little ribbon or trim you can find, you can sew that right on the inside to give it a little bit more strength and stability if you want to. Or you could use a slip stitch border or a decorative border if you wanted to, but it's totally up to you, and it would be a really great way to customize your piece. How would I attach them to make sure they don't pull out? The best way, I would say, and this is not included in the pattern, but what I would do to make sure they don't pull out is after I've sewn them on, I would work a single crochet border all the way around the opening of the bag, I should say, just the opening, which it looks like they did do. I believe there's instructions to add a little round of single crochet edging all the way around the top, but it doesn't include the handles. And personally, I would take that single crochet edging along the top and then up around that handle as well. So you'd have a couple different rounds of it. You have one here, you'd have to start again on this side to do this side and up that side of the handle, but just having a little bit more stitching along there. Might even do the slip stitch when I'm going along the handles and single crochet along here. That might add a little bit of stability as well. But single crocheting will definitely keep them from pulling out. Would I line the bag so small things don't fall out? Well, it depends how small. If they're smaller than that, then I would, but that is really the smallest hole right there in this bag. So probably not a good one to store your crochet hooks in. Then you'd need a lining, but anything much bigger than that isn't going to come through the holes in this one. You can see this is from the inside. They really did pull that center quite tight. So the magic circle would be a perfectly good way to start that as well. Would I sew with a machine? No, this is just sewn in here. For a lining, you could absolutely sew a lining in here with a machine. I know some people do use their sewing machines to sew through their crochet, and this would be a good candidate because it is a nice tight fabric. And as long as you've got the right color thread, it should disappear pretty well. Of course, Yarn Inspirations makes anchor thread as well as all Caron Cotton Cakes. So you can pick up some of the anchor thread or the Coats and Clark thread and really have some fun adding on those details if you want to. But you could sew in the lining if you wanted to. This is a nice solid fabric for that, absolutely. A lot of people do like to hand sew them in, of course, and the holes aren't too big. So if you're not putting tiny things in it, I don't know that you would necessarily need a lining for this one. So we've got just a couple minutes left. Let's see. Is the chain 3 so important, or could 1 or 2 chains work? If you're talking about for the corner, the chain 3 is going to be kind of important just because I know it leaves a little bit of a gap there, but it also lets us turn that corner really nicely. You could probably get away with a chain 2 instead, but then in that corner, I would want you to try working maybe 2 single crochets, chain 2, 2 single crochets, or trying to think. I just don't want your square to be cupping up on you because those corners are too small. So you could play with it if you wanted to try and close those in. You could also, rather than doing a chain 3, you could work extra single crochets, work it more as sort of a solid granny square style. And then you would need to mark which stitch is your corner stitch. So you can continue working a corner in that each time. But yeah, either one of those methods would work fine. It is a pretty simple square, as you've seen. All single crochets, just kind of worked in the round. So if you wanted to play with that, that would be certainly something you could do. Were there any other questions I could answer?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Somebody has said, I did see somebody say the one I made earlier was different. Nope, these are from the exact same skein. Literally, this one. I started pulling, I made this one, I finished it, I set this skein aside for this class, and this is what came out next. So you just never know. It's part of the fun of the yarn for sure. And of course, you know, with bigger squares, you'd get more colors in each square. So they wouldn't look quite so different, I don't think. All righty. Anything else I can answer before we go?
I don't think so.
Okay, awesome.
Amazing.
Great. So once again, for those who didn't manage to snag the pattern, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, this is the Caron Granny Summer Bag, available as a free pattern on your inspirations. And of course, Caron Cotton Cakes are available, oops, there we go, from Michaels. And it is just a really fun yarn to use. So I do recommend you give it a try for whatever project you like to make.
Amazing.
Thanks so much for joining me.
Awesome.
Everybody, have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.